And we will move on to introducing the next piece of legislation in front of us. And after we go through the introduction of all of the bills, then we will turn to public testimony. Chair Sosnowski, would you like to introduce your bill?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you to you and the members of the committee for allowing me to speak on this bill. I'd also like to thank the co-sponsors as well. What this act would do, it would prohibit the intentional release of a balloon inflated with lighter than air gas, an example, helium. And this prohibition will not apply to a balloon released for scientific or meteorological purposes on behalf of a government agency or pursuant to a governmental contract, or a hot air balloon that is recovered after launching, or a balloon that is released and remains indoors. A person or entity that violates this provision would be subject to a civil penalty of up to $500 for each offense. And the release of multiple balloons at one time would be considered a single offense. And DEM is given the authority to promulgate regulations to carry out the provisions of this legislation. This is the second, I believe this is the second year that I have introduced this legislation. And it's incredibly important. Birds and sea creatures that commonly mistake balloons for food, and it can kill them. And according to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, animals can also become entangled in string hanging from balloons. In 2018, Block Island passed an ordinance prohibiting the sale of balloons on Block Island. Town Council voted to ban balloons to protect the environment and wildlife, and I quote, "Balloons pose a risk and nuisance to the environment, particularly to wildlife and marine animals. Anyone who walks the beach or spends time on the water has seen that balloons have become common in the local marine ecosystem," end quote. And that was on the Block Island resolution when they passed it in 2018. Rhode Island would not be alone if we passed this. 5 other states, California, Connecticut, Florida, Tennessee, and Virginia, have passed balloon bans, and they do vary from state to state. And many U.S. cities have banned the release of balloons as well. So in closing, we all know that balloons pollute, and they can kill wildlife. And I hope the committee will pass the bill, and it will go on to the full Senate, and hope the General Assembly will pass this bill this year. There is a House sponsor, Representative Donovan, who has worked very hard on this legislation as well. But this is so important in order to protect the environment and our wildlife. And I understand there are witnesses, Madam Chair, members of the committee that will give testimony this evening. And I'm open to any questions, but I'm sure you're excited to hear from all the witnesses to speak on this evening. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And I also neglected to say welcome back to your committee.
Oh, well, it is. It does feel kind of familiar.
Yep.
Thank you.
Appreciate your testimony. I also know you're juggling multiple committee meetings tonight, so I want to be able to let you return to that. So if there are any, does anyone have any questions for Chair Sosnowski about her legislation? Okay. Hearing none, thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening and good meeting.
Thanks. You too.
Thanks.
All right.